There's a brand new Buzzsprout feature that I have to show you. You know, I love whenever I get to share with you a new feature for your podcast. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Crystal here today, and we are going into my Buzzsprout account. This is my podcast hosting platform. You can check them out here and in the video description, and we are talking about how to add yourself as a host of your podcast, or how to also add a co-host to your show. And if you're like, what are you even talking about? Don't worry. Of course, I'm going to show you. We're going to go to the computer and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. But you can now add host and co-host to your podcast. So let's go to the computer and it'll all make sense. Okay, so here we are. We're signed into the back end of the Proffitt Podcast on my Buzzsprout account. And what I want you to do is go over to Podcast Info. That's where you're going to find all the general information about your podcast. You have your podcast title, your podcast description, your artwork, all of basically the backbone of your podcast, right? Well, you also have these other tabs up here. So it defaults to put you into the general information. But what I want you to do is go over to host and co-host. This is a new update and I think it's really cool. So if I click in here, you can see there's me. I'm the host of the Proffitt Podcast. But if you are running a show that has multiple people, you could add them here as well. Now, I'm not going to go on record and say that once you add this information, it's going to pop up in all the podcast players, because I know in an example of, listening to an Apple podcast, sometimes you'll see the host information and everything like that. For now, that doesn't default to everything as of me recording this video. Hopefully that's where things are heading in the future. But I think it's cool that you can add this information now. That way you do have information about you and your co-host already uploaded into your podcast. That makes sense, right? Okay, well, let's go through how you actually do this. So I'm already there, so you could click in and see what that looks like. But first, I'm going to show you what it looks like to add someone. So if I were to add someone, I just click on add. I can put in Crystal Proffitt, and then you can select my role. Am I the host or a co-host? Obviously, if it's just me, what I did for my setup, I'm just a host. No one else co-hosts the show with me. But for giggles, we're just going to go ahead and put me up here as the co-host. So I could put Crystal Proffitt is the co-host of the Proffitt Podcast. I don't know, whatever you want to write for your bio. You know how to explain yourself better than I do. Obviously in the moment, I can't do this very well. But then I'm going to add a headshot. Do you see the other picture where you could see my face is up there? I'm going to select a picture and put it up here of a different one. That way we know that I'm the co-host of the show. Okay, I wanted to pick a different picture. That way you could tell, well, this is the host and the co-host. I don't know. You could pick whatever picture you're going to want, but you have to see that it has to be smaller than 6 megabytes. It's really important. You want to make sure you do that. And then you can add a personal URL. I'm actually thinking about starting another podcast where it would be myself and 2 other people. And what's cool about this is I could add my own URL and they could each have their own URLs for their profile picture, if you want to call it that. Because maybe when we get started, we won't have a website for just our podcast, but we each are co-hosting and we do our own things in our business and we all have our own website. So we could direct traffic to our each individual platforms, or you could put your Instagram account, whatever you want to put on here. But I think it's cool that we have the option to put it there. So I'm going to click add host. And there we go. There I am. I am now the co-host of my show. Obviously, I'm going to take it down. This isn't going to stay up there. But I wanted to show you that you could add this information into Buzzsprout. It is a very cool feature that I'm so glad that they added it, because I think the more information we can have about host of our show, and especially for those of you that are co-hosting shows with multiple people, it's really cool that you can kind of have access to different individuals of one particular show. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video if you found it helpful. Subscribe below if you have not already, and make sure you come back every single week because we put out brand new videos all about podcasting and running your online business. Make sure you check out these other videos right here that will be super helpful in your podcast journey. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.